Welcome, my son. Welcome to the machine. This is the third and final issue of The Ace, the Mach2 miniseries starring an all-new superhero who is J.K. Jonah Jameson-Simmons' grandson. And this one has him teaming up with the flagship character of the Mach2 universe, Spider-Woman, Marissa Parker, the daughter of the one true Spider-Man, against the foe you never expected. Disagree with that. Now, Eben Seeker, there is a foe I would never expect. The Soul Eater, Drom, the Backwards Man, Mephitosoid, Harinmia, the Flame. I wouldn't expect any of them. I would, however, expect one of Spider-Man's arch-enemies. One of the things I have done is I left it for ages to review this final part, which means that you will not remember the first two. I reviewed them about a year ago, over a year ago. This is by Tom Falcon, Ron French and Brother, the Buscema of Brother. And it is exactly the style and tone that you would expect from them and their retro feel-good Mach2 world. There is, forgive me for possibly repeating myself from those two other videos, there is actually a really good use of the ad Spider-Man versus J.K. Jonah Jameson-Simmons dynamic here. And it's not just a plain rehash either. Jameson-Simmons has a grudge for and is rallying against and slandering the new superhero, the Ace. But the twist is that he doesn't realise it is his grandson. Furthermore, his crusade against the Ace has a more logical starting point than his vendetta with Spider-Man. The Ace was a project funded by him. He wanted to create a new superhero that the city could depend on, and it was mostly well-intentioned, but what ended up happening was his hand-picked candidate died, and Jameson-Simmons' grandson, Jack, was there, and he took on the costume and the identity to honour his friend that died. But his granddad is unaware of all this and believes that the Ace stole the costume and killed the original guy. Tom Falcon's stuff isn't really known for its depth, but I do think they really built on and expanded the threat or menace idea in a good way, where it does evoke the classic stories, but now it also offers a lot more complexity. It is truly the best part of the Ace, the best idea linked to the character and the strongest thing in this miniseries. It hasn't been bad. I think where it fails to land is that the Ace doesn't, on the surface, seem like anything noteworthy. But there is that one idea in there which I would seriously go to bat for. Falcon and French have this very deliberate style They have been doing it consistently since the start of Mach 2. It can feel a lot like a groan, but if you're in the mood for it, then it can work. It is Silver Age worship, generally. It feels like they have a checklist of things from the 60s Spider-Man comics, and they are running through that. The Spider-Woman series often manages to avoid succumbing to it, at least the original one. There is often maturity and sincerity to that. Amazing Spider-Woman does definitely up that Silver Age feel. Everything else in the universe is bordering on parody of either Silver Age Spider-Man or the Silver Age version of whatever the book they are doing is. In this case, I refer to the high school stuff. Jack Jameson and Marissa Parker attend the same high school, and even in Spider-Woman, the high school is always obviously meant to represent that element from the Stanley Lee and Steve Dittman days. I won't explain it because I am 100% confident I did so in part 1 or maybe part 2. Jack was introduced in Spider-Woman as a plain, ordinary student that Marissa knew. He was a potential love interest, and then the twist was that it was J.K. Jonah Jameson's grandson. And the ace came after we had already met and seen Jack for about 12 issues. I said I wasn't going to explain it again, but I basically just did. I keep doing that. I say, here is the thing that I am not going to explain, thus explaining it anyway. The ace, too, was in Spider-Woman first. I definitely did explain this already. We didn't originally know that the ace was Jack. I think bringing Spider-Woman into the story is good and bad. The good thing is that she is a great character, and she lights up anything she is in. It also makes complete sense to bring her in because they have a relationship in their secret identities, and they obviously attend the same school. Basically, it's good, and it makes utter sense. But the giant flaw is that it means you are never allowing the ace to stand on his own. The ace has 3 issues here to make a case for himself as a character or as a solo star, and both issues 2 and 3 have had Spider-Woman there prominently. And maybe this is a case where it was unavoidable, but it weakens the argument that the ace is anything but a quick Spider-Woman spin-off. I don't think there is a single Mach 2 series or mini-series that does not at some point feature a big guest appearance of Spider-Woman. And again, I see the sense. She was far and away the biggest and best character in Mach 2, but I don't know. I don't really have a conclusion to this train of thought. I can't really go anywhere with that take because her appearance here makes so much sense internally. It's just that externally, it feels like either a ploy or a lack of confidence. A big thing here is that the pair don't know each other's secret identities, so much of their friendship or trust isn't there. And I gave away this already, but our big villain is Dan Sloth. A very hard Dan Sloth. This is after the gout takes his legs. My inability to articulate, or rather finalise, a point about things is maybe a blessing, because it functions as a back door to then move into this area of critique. This isn't a good reveal, and it definitely further damns the ace as nothing more than adjunct to Spider-Woman. He has his own series, and not only does it feature Spider-Woman for 2/3, but its villain ends up as a major Spider-Man one. The Spider-Woman title does a solid job of presenting new villains rather than milking all the hard ones. Those new villains might not be great, but an effort was made. Whenever there is a returning villain, it's sensible, like the Venom symbiote, that isn't affected by however many years have passed since Spider-Man was active. The Green Gobbler, the new Green Gobbler, is Larry Oswald's son, Norman Oswald's grandson, Lee Harvey Oswald. And the only kind of tacky daughter of the original villain example actually came from a fill-in issue. Later in the series, Hobgoblin is the closest one that feels a bit shitty. It's the same guy Spider-Man did battle with. And I already have problems with Kingsley as Hobgoblin, and they are magnified when you throw an extra decade and a half into the mix. I would guess that part of this comes from letters and fan mail asking what happened to Dan Sloth. And then the other thing is that it again presents a lack of confidence in the ace. He relies on one of Spider-Man's greatest enemies to have a story worth telling. Dan Slott has become a bit like Brian Ack now. The version of Brian Ack I like, where he is a machine and mentally linked to his machines. So here is some action. The Ace and Spider-Woman versus Dan Slott and Dan Slott's henchwoman. During it, I started thinking that if they needed to have an established Spider-Man villain in this, there was one that you could tie into the Ace's backstory: Scorpius. I will have mentioned him in the first issue when I was running through the Ace's ties to Spider-Man lore and all of J.K. Jonah Jameson-Simmons' backstory involving him trying to create superpowered champions. I will have focused more on the Human Fly, who was name-dropped and has been mentioned in this plenty, and I am the Human Fly's biggest fan. But Scorpius would provide a stronger thematic link that is somewhat individual to the Ace as a character, rather than having Dan Slott just show up at the end. Dan Slott goes into cardiac arrest, and the heroes, mostly Spider-Woman, They stop fighting him to try and save him. Classic hero conflict there, where the Ace realises that he cannot stand back and let Dan Slott die, even though Dan Slott is a villain. Which then re-manifests itself on the very next spread when the Ace is again provided with the exact same dilemma, and he doesn't hesitate this time. This is repaid in kind when the woman uses the opportunity to blast him after he tried to save her. We wrap things up with Spider-Woman, now even more distrustful of the Ace, and not believing that he really tried to save that woman. And there's not really any resolution to the J.K. Jonah Jameson angle either. Well, there didn't need to be. But at the same time, I will say, I don't think there is ever a resolution to it. The Ace continues to appear in Spider-Woman over the years, but we never get to a point where Jameson learns his grandson is the Ace, or at least finds out about the true sequence of events that led to this unauthorized version of the Ace. The Ace doesn't have much focus. He's just a hero in a world where he doesn't get to have much spotlight after these 3 issues. There is some romance to end on with him and her. I've not read all of the first Spider-Woman series, so maybe we do get to see more focus on him through this, the romance, but I really don't think the Ace gets much more. He is usually a guest star alongside other heroes. Marvel, they seem to have learned from their distinguished competition, and so they have put their issue checklist at the back after the story, which means now we get to do my much beloved What Else Was Out feature. People love this because it's usually just me whining about not liking comics and not offering much beyond grumbling. I've looked at a lot of 1998 and 1999 ones, and it's often that I have 1 or 2 issues and then 8 everything else. This is September 2000, and I would normally start by telling you what I have here, but I have nothing here. Not a single one. A perfect display of how the rot was going. I don't think there's even anything interesting here. One of the first ones is Avengers 32. I did actually have that once, but I tore it up on here many years ago. A horrendous issue where Kurt Busey treats us to one of his lectures about how every appearance of a character doesn't count, and it was all smoke and mirrors. Dead Pills by Proust, a crossover with Black Panther by Proust. The Avengers are there too, Kurt Busey's Avengers. Robert Liefeldman Wolfman, Universe Egg Issue 0, Bad Warren Fallis Excellent Force. God, this was a horrible time to be reading Marvel Comics. I preferred having Wonder Tot at the back rather than a list of comics that depress. The Ace is a weird thing. It's got that Falcon French charm, and there is that one idea that is very good, but the miniseries doesn't seem to have much desire to actually take the Ace anywhere. It exists to relay his origin to us, but after that it never gives us a story about the ace. What that list made me realise, however, was that this could have been much worse and still be head and shoulders above most of what they were shitting out. I think that has got to sound like a 7 thumbs up.